My name is Henry Vogt. I'm 74 years old, and I served 32 years in the military, retiring as a colonel. This is a story about a box, a garage, and a son-in-law who thought an old man had nothing left to offer except stories from the past. My wife Ursula died 2 years ago. Since then, I lived alone in the house we built 40 years ago. My daughter Sabine married a man named Dennis 5 years ago, a real estate broker with expensive suits and an opinion about everything, especially about me. Dennis thought I was just an old, irrelevant man. Grandpa with his war stories. He called me behind my back, loud enough that I was meant to hear it. He assumed a retired colonel was nothing more than a pensioner with a small check and a house he should finally sell, as he often hinted. What Dennis didn't know, during my years of service, I had invested wisely. Land, bought in the 1980s for almost nothing, now sitting in prime locations. And I owned something Dennis wanted more than anything, without ever suspecting it. The lot next to his own office building. Land he desperately needed for his expansion plans. Land I had quietly owned for 10 years. A year ago, Sabine invited me to a family dinner to celebrate my birthday. I brought a gift for my grandson Paul, my only grandchild, an old wooden box I'd built myself, his name carved into the lid. Inside, I had hidden documents, the transfer deed for the lot next door, in Paul's name, so that one day he would inherit it, independent of his parents. At the table, in front of the whole family, Dennis opened the box before Paul even had a chance to look at it himself. He glanced inside, saw only papers he assumed were old military records, and said with a laugh, "Honestly, Colonel, save yourself the trouble. Go clean out your garage instead. Before we have to sell this house." He set the box aside, papers still inside, and put it in the corner with the rest of the old junk meant for disposal. I said nothing that evening. An officer learns when to speak and when to observe. 2 weeks later, Sabine called me, her voice uncertain. The housekeeper had found the box while cleaning, ready for the junk pile. When she opened it, the papers fell out. A notary Sabine knew took one look and explained what they actually meant. "Dad," Sabine said, "that lot next to Dennis's office, is that yours?" "It was mine," I said. "I transferred it to Paul. It's his now." Silence on the phone. I told her the truth. Dennis had considered me irrelevant for years. He'd never asked, never listened, never respected what I'd built in my life. So I had decided my assets didn't belong in the hands of someone who couldn't appreciate them. They belonged in my grandson's hands. Secured, independent, untouchable. What Dennis didn't know, and what I now explained to Sabine, was that Dennis had spent months trying to buy that exact lot to expand his office. The previous owner, me, under the name of my old holding company, had rejected every offer, without Dennis ever learning who was behind it. Now it belonged to Paul, and Paul was 12 years old. I invited the family to my house, into my living room, where 32 years of service hung on the walls, photos, commendations, memories Dennis had never once bothered to look at. In front of everyone, I laid the original documents on the table. "Dennis," I said calmly, "2 weeks ago, you thought these papers were trash. Let me show you what you almost threw away." I explained. The lot he'd been trying to buy for a year now belonged to his son, managed by an independent trustee until Paul turns 18. No one, not Dennis, not Sabine, not even me, could sell it, mortgage it, or touch it. Dennis went pale. "You can't do that. This is insane. Who hides something like this in a box for a kid?" I stayed calm, the way 32 years of far greater pressure had taught me. A man who knows that some people only listen when you speak their language. The language of ownership. "You never took me seriously, Dennis. You saw an old man with stories. Now, you know that old man with the stories was holding your biggest deal in his pocket the whole time." Sabine didn't say a word in my defense, but she didn't say one against me either. That was enough. In the months that followed, things changed. Dennis, who had never visited me without a reason, started coming by more often. Not out of affection at first, but out of caution. Slowly, though, he actually began listening when I spoke. "Paul, my grandson, today owns a piece of land that In 10 years, when he comes of age, we'll fund his education and his start in life, independent of everyone in his family. And me? I still sit in my living room, among my old photographs and commendations, and I've learned this. You don't have to be loud to be respected. You only have to know your own worth. Long before others understand it. That's my story. A box, a garage, and a piece of land a son-in-law mistook for junk, until he understood what he'd actually been holding. If this story reminds you never to underestimate an older person, leave a comment below.